Rhythm games have been around for quite a while, and despite that, there really hasn't been enough experimentation to really expand the genre. Right now, when you think rhythm game, you only think of a game with a collection of music that you press buttons to while playing a song. Yet, we have actually hit a point where it's no longer just about that, to the point that it impacts the rhythm genre significantly. But only significant enough to notice, not really enough to redefine what people see when they think rhythm game. So, I'm going to show you some of the more experimental rhythm games in my experience out there, and why you should play them, or at least be aware of them, because believe me, they are actually really good. I won't be getting into every single rhythm game that exists, because that would take forever, obviously, and I don't have all that time to put into a video, but I will be taking some rhythm games that you may not have heard of or seen. Again, they're a little more experimental than what you would think. So, here we go! Oh, but before we start, I am aware of the other rhythm games, like, Taito no Tatsujin, Dance Dance Revolution, Guitar Hero, and Rock Band. However, I want to focus less on rhythm games that use a peripheral, and more into the rhythm games that focus on other more experimental elements. So firstly, with that out of the way, I would like to bring up Cadence of Hyrule, or its full name, Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda and Knuckles, including Funky Mode. This is quite a neat and clever implementation of both Zelda gameplay and Crypt of the Necrodancer gameplay. Now, if you don't know what Crypt of the Necrodancer is, it is a roguelike rhythm game developed by Brace Yourself Games, led by Ryan Clark. It's a game about a character named Cadence, who I believe is looking for her father through these crypts. The gameplay revolves around moving the D-pad to move your character to the beat of the music. Sounds simple, right? Well, it quickly becomes a wall of challenge that takes quite a lot of practice to master. Believe me, I die all the time, repeatedly. I don't think I've gotten past the second set of stages. But repeat playthroughs are highly encouraged with the structure of the game being a roguelike. But what if we take all the gameplay elements and structure like a Zelda game instead? Well, that's basically what Cadence of Hyrule does. It's basically the birth baby, the child of The Legend of Zelda and the Crypt of the Necrodancer getting along really well, just really well together. The game begins with you selecting a character like Link or Zelda. However, nowadays you can even pick Octavio, who was the antagonist throughout the game, and he's really strong. And I really wish I could have his hair, like I would love to have hair like that. Anyway, the game does a decent job explaining how to play it, since you don't move or interact with the world in the same way you do in a Zelda game. All of your inputs and interactions will primarily be done using the D-pad, just like with the Necrodancer, and that's because that's because the movement is grid-based, like Necrodancer. But the world is still built like a Zelda game. You're still exploring piece by piece. And visually, the game is just fantastic to look at, with the colors and sprite artwork all looking just amazing. Like the animations just look very smooth, the way they swing, the way they move. Hell, I really love the detail that their heads bop to the beat of the music. Like that's just really cool, man. So just like a standard Zelda game, you explore and collect items and gear to further progress and help you on your journey to defeat Octavia. There are 4 main dungeons along with a final one. Both the overworld and dungeons have plentiful things on puzzles and combat for you to experience. And it is very neatly done, honestly. And look at all these items. There's so many items, and they all do different and interesting things with the system they have in place. The game also encourages skillful play by being able to time the button presses as you move. And then you can see the Triforce just going crazy. Like it's at a rave trying to party. So, yeah, you can see how it all comes together, slowly anyway. But I don't think you'll be able to really grasp it unless you play it yourself. It does have a lot of details that aren't easily seen unless you actually play it yourself. But you can see how in-depth it is with the mechanics. It becomes second nature eventually, as you're moving with the beat of the music. Compared to other rhythm games, this is quite a departure, honestly, but it's still clearly mostly a rhythm game. You are moving to the beat every time you move into a new area that isn't a town. Other rhythm games, as I have said before, are mostly just a collection of songs that you hit buttons to music to. But clearly, this game doesn't do that at all. Every location has its own music, and it dynamically changes as you battle and explore. And And this is what I mean by experimental, and the potential of the rhythm game genre itself. We have two games already that both focus on moving to the beat at all times, yet how we use that skill is unique, in that it's how we both explore the world in Cadence of Hyrule, and explore the dungeons in Crypt of the Necrodancer. But in Cadence of Hyrule, it makes for a very fun yet focused and solid Zelda game. Seriously, out of all the 2D Zelda experiences I've had, this one ranks very highly for me. I would love to see more hybrids like this, where the rhythm mechanics are properly incorporated and executed with another genre. But of course, none of these games in this genre will do well if the music itself is lacking. Luckily, the music created here by Danny Bermanowski of Necrodancer, Super Meat Boy, and Binding of Isaac fame is incredible. His versions of all the Zelda music are fantastic, especially since they dynamically change in-game depending on what you are doing. Like I said before, battling and exploring, but also even shopping and even pausing. Well, okay, I think you get the picture of what I mean by experimental games in this genre. So let's try something even more different. Next, we have Just Shapes and Beats, and no, that is not me describing the game, that is actually the title of the game. Now, this game might be my favorite of the games we discussed today. Why? Because it's bullet hell, baby. Now, you already know I'm a big fan of rhythm games, but classic arcade shooters, or bullet hell games, are some of my favorites as well. Games like Ikaruga, Radiant Silvergun, there are many within the genre. But what about a bullet hell game where you can't shoot, so all you can do is dodge? And you have to dodge patterns thrown at you to the rhythm of music. Sounds wild, doesn't it? Well, that's exactly what it is. Just Shapes and Beats was developed by Canadian indie team Berserk Studio. When I first laid my eyes on this on the eShop, I was not just curious, but highly interested in the idea, combining bullet hell elements and rhythm game elements. I thought it was genius. I still do. Now, I just want to say a little tiny side bit. Looking at this tile screen, I can already tell you I love it. Not because of the characters on screen, not because of the music. It's due to the fact that the game has such a simple jump in and play feature that I wish all local multiplayer games had. Look at that. It's just hit L and R and bam, you're in. It's good stuff. Anyway, you play a square, and your objective is to survive the pattern hell that is the music of this game. Now, to be fair, this game is a collection of songs, along with a little cute story mode. But in these songs, you aren't hitting buttons to the beat against notes, you are actively dodging instead. The patterns in the level match the rhythm, beat, and sound of the music. So essentially, the music helps in anticipating and predicting when and where to dodge, something you don't see in other bullet hell games. These levels/songs, they capture the feel of the music and appropriately use many different shapes and designs that attack you. Like here, you can see the level throw these at the player early in the song, but as it goes, it starts to combine the elements it was showing you one at a time, bit by bit. As you can see from all the footage, only the pink can hurt you, and it has to be solid pink to do so, like here. You can see that the faded pink color is not hurting me, so solid pink is all you have to worry about. Also, one cool little thing about the damage you take is that each time you take damage, your hitbox becomes smaller, giving you more of a chance to just barely and slimly avoid the obstacles. Now, I know it can look kind of crazy and impossible, but all these patterns within these songs are not random. They play out the same way every time you play the song. So memorization is a factor, but that shouldn't be too surprising for a music style game anyway. But be warned, the game is challenging, even right early on. Like seriously, right when you start, they throw bosses at you. They're pretty tough on replays even then, you know? In the story mode, however, you have a casual mode, which will help you with the challenges. It gives you double the health. And you typically have 3, so then you have 6 for every song. And since the story mode doesn't even rank you, it's a good compromise to experience all the story mode related tracks. As you play through the story mode, though, you will see that there's a lot of cutscenes and symbolism with the characters and shapes. And honestly, it's such a big deal that there are like tons and tons of fan art and even like fan fiction about the shapes in this game's story because it doesn't have any dialogue. But in regards to just what the story mode presents, it's a fun short adventure through nearly half the songs in the game. Many of them are simply extras you can play in the challenge mode, which seems to be the main mode of the game, and the playlist mode, which lets you play any of the songs in any order you want. Completing these tracks outside the story mode gives you beat points to unlock more music. Now, sadly I can't show you what it looks like locked, since I have unlocked everything, if my, well, beat points or gameplay time is anything to go by, but that's the gist of it. I should note though that the game itself states the songs within the game are just samples, which is true. None of the songs in the game are actually the full-fledged songs, and considering all the patterns that come at you, it would probably make the songs too long to just play through. However, it has indeed encouraged me to listen to the music on its own, and it's, of course, pretty rad. In each song you play, you have 3 HP, so 3 hits before you explode and die. But if you're playing multiplayer, your buddy can revive you with 1 hit back. Up to 4 players can play a song together, and there's really no incentive not to work together. And with that, many times online strangers are very willing to help you out through these songs, especially in the hardcore difficulty they later added. The songs also have checkpoints, so it can get pretty rough sometimes when you're a newbie. In order to skillfully dodge these aggressive patterns, you have to make smart use of your dodge ability, which has like a half-second cooldown before it's usable again. So, it all results in a very fun and intense game. There are also modes within the game to encourage play beyond just the story mode. Challenge mode has you play through 2 songs and a boss song. Yeah, these are basically just survival challenges with no checkpoints. But that is not as bad of a thing considering they double your HP when you do them. So you have 6 hits instead of 3 by default. Has nothing to do with the casual mode. However, if you have the casual mode active and you do a boss fight, you'll have 12 hits, I think. So there's that. Challenge mode will automatically loop as well, so you can play with no interruptions and it's easy to jump in and out of. The online is honestly quite painless and surprisingly active currently. The other mode is a playlist mode, where you can just select the order of songs you want to play in a row. I mentioned a little bit of this before, but this is something that I've always wanted in every rhythm game that had a song list. Some have done it, but most have not. This makes it easy to play multiplayer with your friends, jamming and dodging together to any songs that you all like together. They even have a constant playlist party mode, where it constantly plays the track list, but there are no sound effects so you cannot die. The cool thing about it is, if you're hosting some kind of party, you can actually use this mode to play music for it, while having it available for anyone to play if they wanted to. However, that has never happened for me, sadly. Sad. Visually, it's a stunning display of pink, black, and white, making very effective and hype AF patterns that really make it a pleasure to look at while you play. Seriously, I love a lot of the stages because of the visual effects they use. And they don't just use basic effects or patterns. Some of these songs, like this one, Try This, have like a Bond theme going on, giving it more of a better presentation. And a lot of the later and extra songs are more like this, rather than just patterns coming at you and attacking you. So, let's review. A bullet hell and a rhythmic gameplay system. I think it works wonderfully. Seeing as they have kept updating the game with new music even after 2 years, it's clearly a winning formula, so I would love to see more interpretations or alternate takes on this gameplay. I also should mention that the story mode does have some exclusive music that you cannot play outside of it, and it's for story reasons. But other than that, that's about it. Now, the final game I want to bring up here is Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is, in my opinion, one of the most notable rhythm games so far within the genre, period. Essentially, the developers decided to create a music track that is played in multiple sequences of button presses and directional movement, but instead implementing these presses and movement in a way that makes for a natural progression of the music. Now, if what I said sounded confusing and vague, it's because actually I find this game kind of difficult to describe, but it's essentially a rhythmic action game, And I say rhythmic and not rhythm because the music, much like just shapes and beats, is more guiding the player instead of being a hard line of button presses that are needed to pass the music. Now, I have an insane amount of things to say about this game, but I'm going to keep it simple for the sake of brevity. To be fair, all these games deserve their own video, and I may do those someday, but for now, let's keep it concise. Firstly, I want to speak on the visuals. Now, not that the previous two rhythm games don't look good, because as I have said, they look fantastic, but honestly, it doesn't hold a candle to the visual explosion that is Sayonara Wild Hearts. Look at this game! The colors, the animations, and all the effects help to elevate the gameplay and music to the game is like, oh, it's amazing. Sayonara Wild Hearts, while it does have a track list much like Just Shapes and Beats, none of the songs are played in the typical rhythm game fashion. You are skating, driving, fighting, flying all across these songs and all across the journey. The game has a story about loss, love, and relationships in general, all within the symbolism of the game. Whether that be through the arcanas or actions that the characters take, there's clearly a lot of meaning and symbolism going on. The music in particular looks to be specifically made for this game and its songs, which easily explains why the songs fit so very well. It's different compared to Just Shapes and Beats, where the tracks have been around for a while, and Legend of Zelda, which is actually Zelda music remix. So it explains why the songs fit very well. It's almost as if the entire game was developed alongside this soundtrack, which could be true, I don't actually know. Sayonara Wild Hearts, though, is a very simple game to play. As a matter of fact, the game is so easy to understand, it doesn't even need to tell you how to play it. No separate tutorial in sight. The joystick and D-pad move you around only left or right unless seen otherwise, and every button on the controller, minus the start and select buttons, have you do something based on the context on what is happening on screen. And you can't really mess it up. The game even waits for you to press any button to move forward. However, that's not to say that there isn't failure or death in the game. You are still dodging and making maneuvers to survive each stage you play. Structurally, Sayonara Wild Hearts is set up like your standard rhythm game. You have a track list of songs to choose from, and you go from there, completing each one trying to get a high score. Despite this though, the actual gameplay resembles more of an arcade game like the ones in the late 80s, like Space Harrier or Outrun. A game where you are constantly moving forward on a rail, dodging obstacles and maneuvering out of the way to not die or fail the stage. Though this comparison isn't really immediately noticeable until you have played the game's arcade mode, which is unlocked after completing each song in the main game. Visually, the game is stunning, as I've said before, and after you play it for just a bit, you have a handle on what is important and what to look for. The game is very clear in what you have to do. Follow the hearts to collect them, as they keep and help immensely in the path you should be taking throughout each stage. Seriously, this has helped me a lot, dodging and more difficult obstacles that come your way. Even when the entire screen is flashing colors and lights, the collectibles seem to flash at a different rate or point, allowing them to stick out along stages. So how about the music? As someone who loves rhythm games, this one does it to a very subtle degree. The music in many instances can help you if you are feeling lost about what actions need to be taken or how you are supposed to approach an oncoming challenge. For example, in this song, the stage flips between two planes of existence, so you have to weave yourself through them. By following the beat, you can easily anticipate when the flip happens, allowing you to easily weave between the walls. However, if you're never sensitive to the music while you play, you might find yourself hitting walls over and over. There are many instances of this where the music can guide you through the challenges. Believe in the music, my friend. Believe. As for the music itself, it's a genre of music I had never listened to before this game. But, as I kept playing, it grew on me. And now I hum the tunes or sing the lyrics loudly as I shower. So I personally find the music catchy and charming in many subtle ways. And sometimes deep ways. The music in the game really elevates its moments, making things incredibly intense, epic, and even somber, despite its visual flair. Another well put together thing about the music is that it's very much ingrained into the DNA of this game. What I mean by that is that I cannot imagine this game done with a different soundtrack. Every song is perfectly synced to every stage of the game, and it makes for a very concise experience. The soundtrack does not just elevate the game's moments, but the game's moments also elevate the music. In this stage, for example, Reverie, near the end you are surviving and combating your way through a VR shmup, and in the final moments of the stage, you face a boss that shoots tons of rockets at you. But these rockets actually explode on the beat of the music, making a boom sound. A beat that is actually missing in the official soundtrack because it's just a sound effect in the game. Again, how the music is ingrained into the gameplay. With all that said though, you can see just how different the games in this genre could be, along with the fact that this rhythm game genre clearly needs more time and people to continue to create beautiful and amazing experiences with music in our games. The genre, in my opinion, is still in its infancy, with the beginnings like Parappa the Rappa, and the explosion of peripheral rhythm games, before we got something like Thumper, which I have to say is an honorable mention in regards to rhythmic gameplay. And it's honestly one you should check out, though it's like brutally difficult, harder than anything I talked about today. So, I highly recommend you play any of these three amazing games. They are on the cheaper side and available on most platforms, so give it a shot. And when you do, why not tell me about your experience down in the comments? These games are more than just what is known to be a rhythm game.